by the hissing and bubbling of the cauldron. Alizon's gaze was riveted upon her mother, whose slightest gestures she watched. After numbering the assemblage thrice, Mistress Nutter majestically arose, and motioning Mother Chattox towards her, the old witch tremblingly advanced, and some words passed between them, the import of which did not reach the listener's ear. In conclusion, however, Mistress Nutter exclaimed aloud, in accents of command, "Go, bring it at once. The sacrifice must be made." And on this Mother Chattox hobbled off to one of the side chapels. A mortal terror seized Alizon, and she could scarcely draw breath. Dark tales had been told her that unbaptised infants were sometimes sacrificed by witches, and their flesh boiled and devoured at their impious banquets, and dreading lest some such atrocity was now about to be practised, she mustered all her resolution, determined at any risk to interfere, and, if possible, prevent its accomplishment. In another moment Mother Chattox returned, bearing something living, wrapped in a white cloth, which struggled feebly for liberation, apparently confirming Alizon's superstitions, and she was about to rush forward, when Mistress Nutter, snatching the bundle from the old witch, opened it, and disclosed a beautiful bird, with plumage white as the driven snow, whose legs were tied together so that it could not escape. Conjecturing what was to follow, Alizon averted her eyes, and when she looked round again, the bird had been slain, while Mother Chattox was in the act of throwing its body into the cauldron, muttering a charm as she did so. Mistress Nutter held the ensanguined knife aloft, and casting some ruddy drops into the glowing embers, pronounced, as they hissed and smoked, the following adjuration: "Thy aid I seek, infernal power. Be thy word sent to Malkin Tower, that the beldam old may know, where I will, thou'dst have her go. What I will, thou'dst have her do." An immediate response was made by an awful voice, issuing apparently from the bowels of the earth. "Thou who seek'st the demon's aid, know'st the price that must be paid?" The Queen Witch rejoined, "I do. But grant the aid I crave, and that thou wishest thou shalt have. Another worshipper is won, thine to be when all is done." Again the deep voice spake, with something of mockery in its accent. "Enough, proud witch, I am content. To Malkin Tower the word is sent. Forth to her task the beldame goes, and where she points the streamlet flows, its customary bed forsaking, another distant channel making. Round about like elf it's tripping, stock and stone and tree are skipping, halting where she plants her staff, with a wild exulting laugh. Ho! 'tis a merry sight thou hast given the hag to night. Lo! the sheepfold and the herd to another sight are stirred, and the rugged limestone quarry, where 'twas digged, may no more tarry, while the goblin haunted dingle with another dell must mingle. Pendle Moor is in commotion, like the billows of the ocean, when the winds are o'er its ranging, heaving, falling, bursting, changing. Ho! 'tis a merry sight thou hast given the hag to night. Lo! the moss pool sudden flies in another spot to rise, and the scanty grown plantation finds another situation, and a more congenial soil, without needing woodman's toil. Now the warren moves, and see how the burrowing rabbits flee, hither, thither, till they find it, with another brake behind it. Oh, 'tis a merry sight thou hast given the hag to night. Lo! new lines the witch is tracing, every well known mark effacing, elsewhere other bounds erecting, so the old there's no detecting. Oh, 'tis a pastime quite thou hast given the hag to night.
The hound at eve, who wandered o'er the dreary waste of Pendle Moor, shall wake at dawn, and in surprise doubt the strange sight that meets his eyes. The pathway leading to his hut winds differently, the gate is shut. The ruin on the right that stood lies on the left, and nigh the wood. The paddock, fenced with wall of stones, well stocked with kine, a mile hath flown. The sheepfold and the herd are gone. Through channels new the brooklet rushes, its ancient course concealed by bushes. Where the hollow was, a mound rises from the upheaved ground. Doubting, shouting with surprise, how the fool stares and rubs his eyes. All's so changed, the simple elf fancies he is changed himself. Oh, 'tis a merry sight the hag shall have when dawns the light. But see, she halts and waves her hand. All is done as thou hast planned. After a moment's pause, the voice added, I have done as thou hast willed. Now be thy path straight fulfilled. It shall be, replied Mistress Nutter, whose features gleamed with a fierce exultation. Bring forth the proselyte, she shouted, and at her words her swarthy serving man, Blackadder, came forth from the Lacy chapel, leading Jennet by the hand. They were followed by Tib, who, dilated to twice his former size, walked with tail erect, and eyes glowing like carbuncles. At the sight of her daughter a loud cry of rage and astonishment burst from Elizabeth Device, and rushing forward she would have seized her, if Tib had not kept her off by a formidable display of teeth and talons. Jennet made no effort to join her mother, but regarded her with a malicious and triumphant grin. "This is my child," screamed Elizabeth. "She cannot be baptised without my consent, and I refuse it. I dunna want her to be a witch, at least not yet awhile. What may you here, you little plague?" "I were brought here, mother," replied Jennet, with affected simplicity. "Then get home at once, and stop there," rejoined Elizabeth, furiously. "Nay, ey'st na go just yet," replied Jennet. "I'd fain be a witch as weel as yo." "Ho!" laughed the voice from below. "Nay, nay, I forbid it," shrieked Elizabeth. "Ye shanna be baptised. Why ha ye brought her here, madam?" she addressed to Mistress Nutter. "You ha stolen her from me, but I protest agen it." "Your consent is not required," replied Mistress Nutter, waving her off. "Your daughter is anxious to become a witch. That is enough." "She is not old enough to act for herself," said Elizabeth. "Age matters not," replied Mistress Nutter. "What mun I do to become a witch?" asked Jennet. "You must renounce all hopes of heaven," replied Mistress Nutter, "and devote yourself to Satan. You will then be baptised in his name, and become one of his worshippers. You will have power to afflict all persons with bodily ailments, to destroy cattle, blight corn, burn dwellings, and, if you be so minded, kill those you hate or who molest you. Do you desire to do all this?" "Ay, that I do," replied Jennet. "I ha more pleasure in evil than good, and would rather see folk weep than laugh; and if I had the power, I would so punish them as jeer at me, that they should rue it to their dying day." "All this you shall do, and more," rejoined Mistress Nutter. "You renounce all hopes of salvation, then, and devote yourself, soul and body, to the powers of darkness?" Elizabeth, who was still kept at bay by Tib, shaking her arms and gnashing her teeth in impotent rage, now groaned aloud. But ere Jennet could answer, a piercing cry was heard, which thrilled through Mistress Nutter's bosom, and Alizon, rushing from her place of concealment, passed through the weird circle, and stood beside the group in the midst of it. "Forbear, Jennet," she cried, "forbear. Pronounce not these impious words, or you are lost for ever. Come with me, and I will save you." "Sister Alizon!" cried Jennet, staring at her in surprise. "What makes you here?" "Do not ask, but come," cried Alizon,
trying to take her hand. "Oh! what is this?" cried Mistress Nutter.